I'm certain that every member of Congress would say that if they had been in Congress when John Lewis walked across that Edmund Pettus Bridge and the Civil Rights Act was passed, that they would have stood on the right side of history. Well, Madam Speaker, today we're going to see exactly what side of history you all are going to be on.
Democrats' impeachment of President Trump today has now set the standard that they should be removed for their support of violence against the American people.
It was a day of history on Capitol Hill, the House voting to impeach President Trump, accusing him of inciting last week's insurrection inside and outside the U.S. Capitol. Unlike the first time he was impeached 12 months ago, we saw lawmakers on both sides voting in favor of impeachment. The final vote, the tally, 232 to 197, 10 Republicans voting in favor of it. Georgia representatives, though, sticking to party lines.
The next step is a trial in the Senate. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell making it clear today he will not hold a trial before next week's inauguration. Even if the Senate does convict President Trump, they would still have to decide the punishment, which could include banning him from running in the future. Earlier this afternoon, the White House releasing this statement urging no violence, no law breaking, no vandalism of any kind after the vote. The statement references the FBI warnings of more possible armed protests and says it is not what President Trump stands for. The White House released a video statement from President Trump this evening. These are his first public comments since the House voted to impeach him. In it, he condemns last week's attack on the Capitol while also calling for peace.
No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement, you are attacking it, and you are attacking our country.
The president also spoke out against his bans from multiple social media platforms. He also called on federal agencies to use all resources to maintain order for a peaceful transition, but did not mention today's impeachment vote. The speed of the impeachment process in D.C. now being driven by last week's riot at the Capitol. Georgia played a large role in the Democratic argument for impeachment, and our Joe Henke explains why.
In the single article of impeachment, Democrats claim President Donald Trump incited the crowd that stormed the U.S. Capitol, but also at the center of the article of impeachment is the president's actions following the presidential election through last week, with Georgia being the only state specifically named.
President Trump urged the Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, to find enough votes to overturn the Georgia presidential election results.
That claim read on the House floor today from the article of impeachment against President Donald Trump. Explaining the article in depth is this supporting House document, where Georgia is named 50 times across 50 pages. President Trump was especially fixated on Georgia, is one quote referencing the president's false claim that he won Georgia. Today, Georgia Representative and Democrat Carolyn Bordeaux said Trump's claim fueled the events of January 6th.
But despite 3 recounts and many investigations, the results are clear. Joe Biden won Georgia. Our president used this lie to incite a violent mob to attack the Capitol.
Also quoted in the House document, the president and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's January 2nd phone call.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
The impeachment supporting document states Trump threatened Raffensperger with criminal penalties. It then details Trump pressuring now former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, B.J. Pack. Pack abruptly resigned the day before the Capitol riot. The House document reads, Mr. Pack was told by White House officials he needed to resign because the president was furious that Mr. Pack was not pursuing the president's groundless claims of widespread voter fraud in Georgia. Also quoted, Trump's speech in Dalton, Georgia, 2 days before the violence in Washington.
And they're not taking this White House. We're going to fight like hell, I'll tell you right now.
What happened on Wednesday, January 6th, was nothing short of pure anarchy.
Georgia Representative and Republican Buddy Carter spoke today against impeachment. Carter said rioters must be held legally accountable, but impeaching the president would only further divide an already split country.
This is very serious and concerning effort during such a tense and fragile time in our country.
Supporters of President Trump, as well as his detractors, watch today's impeachment proceedings closely and, for some, with a measure of alarm. Although Joe Biden narrowly won Georgia back in November, Mr. Trump supporters are still sticking with him. 11 Alive's Doug Richards is at the Capitol with more.
President Trump's supporters say, yes, they too were horrified by the attack on the Capitol last week. But to impeach him again?
We've only had 45 presidents. We shouldn't be impeaching presidents. We should let him go out on Wednesday.
That's State Senator Brandon Beach. This week, the Republican lost his chairmanship of the Senate Transportation Committee, apparently as punishment for supporting efforts to overturn Georgia's November vote for Joe Biden. Republican Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan led the effort to strip Beach of the chairmanship.
That was kind of petty politics that, was unnecessary.
Republican State Senator Burt Jones also lost his chairmanship for the same reason. Jones is still an unapologetic supporter of the president and says the violence at the Capitol last week wasn't Trump's fault.
I support the president. I appreciate him for his service and wish him the best in the future.
Do you think the president's hands were clean in this insurrection?
You just wanting to get to that question, aren't you? Yeah. He didn't go in there. He didn't storm the Capitol himself. He didn't lead the charge,
We should let him go out on Wednesday, and he'll finish his term. And we should treat him with respect as an ex-president.
We cannot just throw this behind us.
Democrat Calvin Smyre is Georgia's longest-serving lawmaker. He says the attack on the Capitol requires the strong message that impeachment sends.
And we are living in perilous times, and it appears that with the attack on our democracy, I don't think there's any recourse but to do what the Congress is proposing today.
A number of Republicans we approached here did not want to talk about President Trump's impeachment. For many of them, it is a no-win question if they expect to face voters again in 2 years.
For President Trump now, there is some financial backlash to all of this of the last week. Today, New York City terminated business contracts with the Trump Organization, which operates 2 ice rinks and a carousel in Central Park, along with a golf course in the Bronx. Contracts earning the Trump Organization about $18 million a year. This move comes after the 2022 PGA Championship was pulled from President Trump's golf course in New Jersey, and Deutsche Bank and other companies announced that they are severing business ties as well. Today, one of the co-founders of the Home Depot announced that President Trump has betrayed him, that he felt betrayed by the actions of the president leading up to the U.S. Capitol siege. Ahead at 9 o'clock on 11 Alive Primetime, we'll look at why Ken Langone says that he is going to take some of his influence and certainly put it behind the incoming administration.